And there's no doubt she targeted Harry and found someone who was a childhood friend of his who could introduce them.
Picture this: a calm morning out in California. The sky is slowly waking up, pale sunlight slipping through the windows while the house stays quiet.
She says that she didn't cooperate with Omid Scobie, and she said that she didn't consult him when writing the letter to her father.
A fresh cup of coffee sits on the counter inside that $14 million Montecito mansion. For a brief moment, everything feels peaceful. Then suddenly, Meghan Markle's phone bursts to life like a flashing alarm. Notifications light up the screen nonstop. Calls stacking up, messages pouring in. Something huge has just landed, and that quiet morning flips into full chaos in seconds.
In the hope that somebody will come along and say, there's money in this, let's support Meghan and her as ever brand.
So what triggered the frenzy? Journalist Tom Bower has stepped forward with a fresh claim that has people talking everywhere. Phones are ringing, advisors are scrambling, and insiders say Meghan has been staying unusually quiet behind closed doors. This is not just another headline drifting through the royal rumor mill. This feels like a serious media storm building in real time, and the volume keeps getting louder. Here's the thing about Tom Bower. He is not some random online commentator chasing attention. The man has spent decades investigating powerful names across business, entertainment, and politics. We are talking about CEOs, celebrities, and figures with global influence. And yes, the royal family has landed right in the middle of his reporting more than once. Before we dig into the newest revelation and why some reports say Meghan is feeling the pressure, make sure you hit subscribe, tap that like button, and turn on notifications.
It's just one of those things everybody imagines. When somebody is pregnant close to you, you wonder what the child will look like.
This story is moving fast, and new twists keep popping up everywhere. Bower built his reputation by saying the things other people would not dare say out loud. When he focuses on a subject, calm rarely lasts very long. He is known for digging deep, chasing leads, and piecing together details others might overlook. No sugarcoating, no protecting reputations, just after investigation until the full picture starts forming. His book, Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between.
But I thought that was just such a disgrace. I thought she behaved so badly, and Harry too. For his interview with Oprah Winfrey. So that's a major breakthrough for Samantha Markle, for Thomas Markle.
The Windsors sent shockwaves through royal watchers everywhere. The reaction exploded instantly. Reports said people inside royal circles were stunned. Headlines flooded news sites. Social media turned into a debate battlefield overnight. Claims from Bower's book spread across the internet at lightning speed, and even now, people still reference it whenever the couple comes up. Many observers thought that moment was the peak, that Bower had already said everything he planned to say. But now he is back, and this time he is pushing the conversation even further. Considering how explosive his earlier reporting was, that alone is enough to raise eyebrows. This time, the spotlight shifts toward Meghan's early days in Hollywood. Not the glamorous premieres or glossy magazine covers people usually imagine. Instead, the grind behind the scenes. Endless auditions, crowded waiting rooms, networking events, and the exhausting fight to land steady work. Anyone familiar with Hollywood knows the industry can be brutal. Breaking through that world often takes more than raw talent. Timing matters. Connections matter.
You write in the book, Harry must be nuts. This is one of the text messages his friends were sending around to each other after Meghan's first introduction to Harry's friends in 2017 during a shooting weekend at Sandringham.
Being around the right people at exactly the right moment can change everything. And according to Bower's claims, Meghan's path through that system may have involved more twists than people realized at the time. Now there is talk about opportunities appearing at interesting moments, doors opening faster than expected, roles and chances showing up in ways that some observers say made people curious. That chatter alone has Hollywood insiders whispering again. For years, the public mostly heard one version of the story about her rise in the industry. But the version now being discussed sounds noticeably different, and that shift in narrative is grabbing serious attention.
Just ludicrous. It's all about her. And this extraordinary interview with Serena Williams, where the first 11 minutes is all about her, and not about this phenomenal tennis
Serena
champion.
Williams.
I mean, so that's why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And who'd want to put herself or himself, as always, women. I mean, she does have this strange distrust, I think, of men. And it's not healthy to have these stories of rivalry, and to split the foundation was absolutely unnecessary.
And here is where things start heating up. Questions are circulating about the connections Meghan may have leaned on while moving up the ladder. Some people are asking a simple question: Was it purely talent, or did certain relationships help open key doors? The discussion does not stop there either. Sources speaking with Bauer have shared stories about individuals from Meghan's earlier years who gradually drifted out of her circle as her career progressed.
You can't trust Meghan and Harry. That's the point. Even if you think you've got a deal, and that I don't believe that is possible, but if you think you have, the palace will be shocked that they will renege immediately because they have no advantage of reconciliation. They've got no advantage of ending their vendetta. Who she could. So I sent off dozens and dozens of emails to her friends, and most of them didn't even reply.
Nothing explosive or dramatic, just friendships fading, colleagues going separate ways, and older connections quietly disappearing from the picture. What begins to form is the image of someone extremely focused on reaching the top. Someone determined to keep moving forward even when the path was tough. According to Tom Bauer's reporting, the journey from working actress to global public figure may have included far more turns than the polished public version suggests. And just when it seems the Hollywood chapter is the main focus,
up their whole thing, went way too hard on we're victims, and they assessed the mood of their generation and America correctly in that we are lovers of victimhood. Yeah. But America did finally find a way to say, you know what? We love victims, but you two, we've just had a little too much.
Things reportedly get even more complicated because Bauer did not stop with the film industry at all. He claims Meghan did not simply move forward through her story. According to Tom Bauer's claims, Meghan may have also reshaped parts of that story along the way. When Prince Harry entered the picture, everything changed quickly. Meeting a real prince can transform a life almost overnight. Bauer argues that this moment marked a shift when Meghan began carefully refining the narrative around her past. Certain moments polished, details adjusted, and a new image taking shape. A modern royal figure.
Meghan's podcast has fallen off the charts. She's been criticized for the content. There are rumors that her As Ever launch wasn't as successful as she considered it. Critically, With Love Meghan was not a success.
It starts to look like someone carefully building a powerful personal brand from the ground up. The image of a modern princess with a life story that sounds perfectly scripted. One passage even suggests that parts of her background were presented in slightly different ways to match that image. Not just small edits, but bigger shifts in how some chapters of her life were described. Claims like that naturally make people pause and reconsider the story they thought they understood. And this is where things reportedly became uncomfortable for Meghan. Insiders claim that once she realized how far Bauer had dug into her past, the situation began to feel overwhelming. This was not casual internet gossip or recycled rumors bouncing around online. Reports suggested Bauer had gathered information Meghan never expected to surface. Sources say that moment made things feel personal.
Professionally, they've gone down dramatically, and I predicted it in the book, but even I would not have thought it'd be that accelerated. I think personally, they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast.
The information, according to reports, came from individuals who had known Meghan during earlier stages of her life. People who had once been part of her circle. That possibility alone would make anyone uneasy. If someone from the past had spoken with a journalist, it would immediately raise questions about trust. For someone known for carefully managing public image, surprises like that can feel like a nightmare. Insiders often say Meghan prefers to stay in control of the narrative, knowing what is being said, when it is said, and how it is presented in the media. That approach has long been part of how she navigates public life. Control the message, avoid surprises. But with Bauer's investigation, reports suggest she had little influence over how the story unfolded. That loss of control reportedly created serious tension behind the scenes. There were even whispers that members of her team began trying to figure out who might have spoken with the journalist. Old friends, past co-workers, former connections.
One probably to serve and be silent. Well, that's the job of the royal family, that they're not there to campaign.
Anyone who might have insight into her earlier years. And this was not ordinary celebrity chatter floating through tabloids. The details being discussed were described as insider-level information, the kind that usually only comes from people who were actually there. That is exactly why the revelation struck directly at the carefully polished image many people associate with Meghan's rise. Imagine spending years shaping a public identity, carefully aligning every interview, appearance, and public statement with the story you want to tell. Then suddenly a journalist publishes claims suggesting parts of that story might be more complicated than they appeared. Once questions like that start circulating, people begin looking at everything through a completely different lens. Meanwhile, while Meghan is reportedly dealing with this huge wave of attention, Prince Harry has not exactly been kicking back either. According to insiders, the chatter around Tom Bower's latest material has created real tension behind the scenes.
They don't generate any money, and I don't see where she is going from.
Never really intended to stay. Her guest list to her wedding showed her real ambition was to be a star in California. The abdication happened because of the American Wallace. That was a catastrophe in a way, but we overcame it, and his successor, George VI, was a terrifically successful king. And of course, the Queen was phenomenally successful, and we'll see what happens.
And when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, it starts to make sense why things feel so intense right now. Their move to California was supposed to mark a fresh start, a brand new chapter far away from royal pressure and palace drama. But the road since that move has not been perfectly smooth. Several of their major media ventures in the United States have run into bumps that quickly turned into big headlines. Take the highly publicized Netflix deal. When that partnership was first announced, expectations shot through the roof. People were waiting for Blockbuster.
That Meghan was warmly welcomed in Britain, that everyone in the royal family tried their very, very hardest to make her feel at home and accommodate her, but that unfortunately Meghan only wanted to be the star and made it impossible for her and the royal family to collaborate.
Content and huge releases, but some projects moved slower than expected, and not every show landed with the massive splash many predicted. Then came the end of the Spotify partnership, another moment that had the entertainment world talking. Situations like that naturally invite critics to ask questions about what direction their media empire is heading next, and the conversation does not stop there. Meghan's push into the lifestyle and wellness space, another major step, has also struggled to build the explosive momentum many thought it would have right away. The buzz around the brand has been quieter than many predicted. Some audiences seem unsure about the vision, and the excitement has not fully taken off yet. But here's the twist that keeps people watching closely. For years, Meghan and Harry have built their public image around one big idea: being open, honest, and authentic about their lives. That message has echoed again and again through interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and Harry's own memoir, speaking openly, sharing their truth, telling their side of events directly to the public. But now, with Bower's claims stirring fresh debate, that message is facing a whole new level of scrutiny. With Bower's latest work making headlines, the polished picture many people once accepted is suddenly being questioned. And the timing could not be more complicated. According to discussions surrounding the book, it presents a version of Meghan that some observers say they had never heard about before. Now, the question floating around everywhere is simple, but powerful. Was that authentic image completely natural, or was it part of a carefully shaped narrative? If the public begins believing the story was overly polished or strategically framed, that becomes more than just a small public relations issue. That kind of doubt could shake the entire foundation of the brand Meghan and Harry have spent years building. Their message has always centered on honesty, transparency, and speaking openly about their experiences. So if cracks begin appearing in that idea, the ripple effect could be huge. Public trust plays a massive role in how audiences respond to public figures, and the timing only adds more pressure. Their California ventures have already faced a few rocky moments, and excitement around certain projects has cooled slightly. Then suddenly a controversial book arrives right in the middle of that situation. That is exactly the type of storm no public figure wants to face. Yet here it is, landing right at their doorstep when things already feel complicated. Harry understands better than most how quickly media situations like this can spiral. He has watched the cycle play out countless times before. One headline appears, then another, and suddenly every chapter of your life is being picked apart under a magnifying glass. That is exactly where they appear to be now. Every interview clip, every public speech, every old comment is being pulled back into the spotlight and analyzed all over again. For someone who stepped away from royal life hoping for more privacy and calm, that constant spotlight must feel exhausting. Instead of settling into a peaceful new life in California, they once again find themselves standing in the middle of a roaring media storm. And this time, there is a major difference. When they were still working royals, a full palace communications team handled the crisis management behind the scenes. Now they are largely steering through the chaos themselves. That alone raises the pressure dramatically. But if the situation already sounds tense, the next part of Bauer's investigation pushes the story into even more personal territory. This is where attention shifts toward Meghan's complicated relationship with her father, Thomas Markle. And this subject has always carried heavy emotion. For years, Meghan's public explanation has stayed consistent. She said the relationship broke down after her father cooperated with photographers and media outlets before her wedding. That situation included staged photos that exploded across headlines around the world. According to Meghan's account, that moment deeply damaged trust and led to their separation. However, Bauer's research reportedly raises fresh questions about that chapter. The journalist suggests there may be additional layers to the story that the public has not fully heard before. Instead of a simple one-sided conflict, he hints the situation may have been more complicated than it first appeared. In conversations about his findings, one idea keeps coming up again and again: the power of framing. Public figures often shape how their life stories are presented. Meghan has long been recognized as someone who understands media messaging very well. When a narrative is presented clearly and confidently, audiences often accept that version of events. Sources mentioned in discussions about the book suggest Meghan understood early on just how powerful storytelling could be. Highlighting certain details, leaving out others, and focusing on key emotional moments can shape how the entire situation is perceived. Of course, none of this means Thomas Markle himself was without controversy. Even Bauer's commentary recognizes that the situation involving him has always been complicated and messy. But the argument being raised is that the public may have only seen one part of a much larger picture, and that possibility shifts the emotional weight of the story. Meghan's family conflict has played a big role in how many people understand her life journey. The image of someone feeling hurt or misunderstood by relatives created strong sympathy from many viewers. But what happens if the narrative begins to shift? If people start wondering whether certain parts were simplified or presented differently, it naturally leads to even more questions about the broader story, and Bauer is not limiting his focus to the family drama alone. He is reportedly taking a wider look at Meghan's entire path, from the early hustle in Hollywood to her rise as a globally recognized figure. Everyone already knows the headline version: a working actress who eventually became a duchess and then a powerful international personality. But the big question now entering the conversation is this: how much of that rise unfolded naturally, and how much might have been carefully planned along the way? Building a powerful public image is not something that happens by accident. It takes timing, strategy, and extremely careful planning. And according to sources discussing Tom Bauer's work, Meghan was incredibly skilled at handling that process. Some observers even suggest she may have been almost too sharp when it came to shaping her public story. The wild part? The book has not even fully hit shelves yet, and the buzz is already exploding everywhere. Social media is going absolutely wild right now. People are digging up old interviews, replaying past appearances, and pulling video clips from years ago. Then they line those moments up next to the claims now being discussed, and the comparisons are spreading across the internet like lightning. Suddenly, viewers online say they are spotting things they never noticed before. Timelines that seem a little off. Details that appear to shift depending on the interview. Small moments that once slipped by quietly are now being replayed over and over again, and the internet loves nothing more than a mystery to break apart piece by piece. The comparisons are flooding in fast. Comment sections are filling with viewers pointing out moments where Meghan's earlier statements sound slightly different from what is being discussed now. Some people are asking tough questions, others are stepping in to defend her, and the debate is getting louder every single hour. But here's the twist that caught many people by surprise. It is not just longtime critics speaking up anymore. Even some supporters, people who defended Meghan very strongly in the past, have suddenly gone quiet. Spaces that once overflowed with praise now feel noticeably different. Instead of automatic support, there is more hesitation, more curiosity. Some people are even asking, wait, did we really hear the full story before? And that shift matters a lot, because those same supporters once connected deeply with Meghan's journey. They believed the struggles she described and related to the challenges she shared with the world. Now some of them are stepping back and re-examining everything. When loyal supporters begin raising questions, public conversations can shift extremely fast. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic Ocean, the British press has jumped straight into the drama. Headlines are popping up everywhere. Tabloids are printing bold titles across their front pages. Phrases like "new claims emerge" and "fresh questions surrounding the Duchess" are dominating the news cycle. It almost feels like the intense media frenzy from years ago has suddenly returned. Only this time, the coverage feels heavier because reporters say the discussion is based around detailed reporting rather than quick speculation. That difference has given the story even more momentum. Many UK outlets appear to have been waiting for a moment like this. Now that Bauer's research is back in the spotlight, journalists are digging into every detail they can find. Every quote is being examined. Every timeline is being debated. Every claim is being pulled apart from every possible angle. And while all this noise is exploding across social media and international headlines, reports suggest the atmosphere inside the Montecito mansion has been tense. Staff members are said to be moving carefully, unsure which headline might appear next. Phones ringing nonstop. Messages flooding in from reporters, contacts, and media outlets searching for answers. Behind the scenes, public relations teams are reportedly working overtime trying to steady the situation. Meetings are being arranged. Strategies are being discussed. Everyone involved is trying to figure out how to calm the storm before it grows even bigger. But when a journalist releases a detailed investigation like this, there are limits to how much control a PR team really has. Once the conversation spreads across social media and international news networks, the momentum becomes extremely difficult to slow down. Some insiders claim Meghan has told friends she feels completely boxed in by the situation. According to those reports, she feels exposed and deeply frustrated that personal parts of her life are being debated so publicly once again. After years of carefully shaping a confident and polished public image, watching that image questioned on a global stage would shake almost anyone. Because once people begin doubting one piece of a story, they often start questioning everything connected to it. That is simply how public perception works in the digital age. Now imagine what the first hours of this situation might have looked like behind closed doors. According to some reports, the morning the news started spreading was pure chaos. Meghan's phone reportedly lit up with message after message from friends and contacts warning her that headlines were about to explode. Insiders claim that once she realized how deeply Tom Bauer had researched her past, the mood inside the house shifted instantly. This was no longer a normal news cycle. It had turned into full crisis mode. Publicists were reportedly contacted immediately. Advisors started placing urgent calls. Emergency conversations were happening everywhere as people tried to understand just how big the situation might become. One source described the atmosphere as frantic, people moving quickly through the house trying to gather information while headlines kept spreading across the internet. And the most surprising part, according to those reports, was how personal some of the details sounded. These were not just basic facts taken from public records. The information seemed to come from individuals who had known Meghan during earlier chapters of her life. Friends, old contacts, people who had once been part of her circle. That realization reportedly hit hard, because if those details truly came from someone connected to her past, it would mean trust had been broken somewhere along the way. One insider described the moment like someone suddenly realizing their protective walls were not as strong as they once believed. All that careful image management. Yet pieces of the story are still finding their way out. That is the part making the situation feel even more intense. Because Tom Bauer did not stop with Hollywood struggles or family tensions. According to discussions around the book, he pushed his research much deeper into Meghan's history. We are talking about everything from childhood memories to school years and the earliest steps of her career. Reports say Bauer examined those chapters extremely closely, and what he claims to have uncovered is now causing some observers to wonder how closely the polished public version of Meghan lines up with the experiences that others remember. Some people who knew Meghan during her years at Northwestern University have reportedly begun sharing their own memories. According to those accounts, the Meghan they remember looks a little different from the global public figure the world sees today. Not necessarily because of fame, but because of how certain parts of her background and early experiences were later described. If former classmates start speaking more openly and comparing their recollections, that could lead to some very awkward conversations, especially if different versions of the same events start appearing side by side. Situations like that tend to spread fast online, where every small detail gets debated and pulled apart. Old stories people assumed had disappeared forever suddenly begin resurfacing again. Moments from years back get dragged back into the spotlight. For someone who spent years carefully shaping a public narrative, that kind of attention can feel incredibly intense. Because for any public figure, one of the biggest fears is losing control of their own story. Once several voices begin sharing different memories from the past, the narrative becomes much harder to guide, and this is where the situation reportedly becomes even more heated. According to people discussing Tom Bauer's research, the book contains personal details that many believe could not have come from public records alone. Some of the accounts reportedly involve private conversations, behind-the-scenes moments, and memories that only people close to Meghan would likely know. That possibility has sparked huge speculation. If those details truly came from inside her past, it would suggest that someone may have spoken with the journalist. and perhaps more than one person. Naturally, the internet has gone into full detective mode, trying to guess who it might be. Some believe former staff members from earlier periods of her life could have shared their perspectives. Others think old Hollywood contacts, people connected to acting jobs or early career days, might have offered their recollections. But the loudest speculation keeps circling back to family, and that is where the story suddenly becomes much more emotional. One name that keeps popping up in discussions is Thomas Markle, Meghan's father. There has been no public confirmation about whether he spoke with Bauer or not. However, because the book reportedly includes detailed references to family moments from the past, some observers are wondering who else might remember those events so clearly. According to a few insider reports, Meghan herself has been trying to figure out where the information might have come from. Those reports claim she has reached out to certain contacts, asking questions and trying to understand whether someone close to her could have contributed to the investigation. If that were ever confirmed, it would feel far more personal than a typical media leak. Situations involving family always carry a deeper emotional impact. And then there is another figure who often appears in discussions about Meghan's family history, her half-sister Samantha. Around the same time the book started generating attention, Samantha posted several cryptic messages online. In those posts, she thanked certain people for sharing the truth. The messages were short and vague, but they immediately caught attention. Online communities quickly started trying to decode what she might have meant. Was it simply coincidence? Or was she hinting at something connected to the book? Meanwhile, Prince Harry is reportedly right in the middle of all this tension. According to sources, he wants to support Meghan and protect her from the constant criticism. At the same time, the non-stop headlines have reportedly been exhausting for him. Every few months, another controversy seems to appear. Another documentary, another interview, another book that sparks fresh debate. Harry once spoke openly about wanting a calmer life in California, away from the intense pressure he experienced during his royal years. But instead of quiet, the spotlight keeps finding its way back to them again and again. Insiders say the atmosphere inside their home has grown tense under the weight of all this attention. Stress has reportedly been lingering in the background, affecting everyone around them. When old chapters of your life keep getting dragged back into public discussion, it can wear anyone down over time. And here is the part that keeps people watching closely. This story might not be finished yet, because if more voices from Meghan's past begin stepping forward, the conversation could grow even louder. Right now, it does not look like the spotlight is fading anytime soon. There is already talk about new documentaries, additional investigations, and even more writers exploring Meghan's early Hollywood years. It almost feels like the floodgates just opened. Suddenly, everyone seems eager to tell their version of what Meghan was like before the world knew her name. For someone who spent years carefully building a strong public image, watching all of this unfold piece by piece must feel incredibly heavy. The past she worked hard to move beyond is not staying buried anymore. Instead, it is rushing back into public view faster than anyone expected. Every polished detail about who she is and where she came from is now being looked at again under a much brighter spotlight. And when a personal brand relies heavily on one consistent narrative, even small cracks can suddenly appear massive. People are not just questioning one moment anymore. They are revisiting everything. Old interviews are being replayed again. Speeches are getting analyzed line by line. Past appearances are popping up across social media feeds. Viewers are watching those clips with completely new eyes. And that kind of attention can place enormous pressure on a public reputation. Think about how dramatic the shift feels. Meghan once stood as a global figure surrounded by huge opportunities. Major partnerships, worldwide recognition, and a platform most people could only dream of having. But now every title, every speech, and every piece of that carefully built image is being examined again. And here's the twist that makes this situation even more complicated. The biggest challenge Meghan may face right now might not actually be Tom Bauer, the headlines, or critics online. The real challenge could be something far harder to control: how the past gets interpreted once new conversations begin. Public relations teams can release statements. Advisors can shape responses. But when multiple perspectives about old events start spreading widely, guiding the narrative becomes much more difficult. And the past Meghan once tried to move beyond is no longer staying quiet. One story appears, then another detail surfaces, and suddenly the conversation grows louder and louder. Maybe that is the tricky reality of building such a tightly managed public image. When everything looks perfectly controlled, even a small disruption can trigger a much bigger debate. So now the big question people everywhere seem to be asking is simple: What happens next? Can Meghan turn this moment into a comeback story and reshape the narrative once again? Or are we watching the beginning of a major shift in how the public sees her carefully built image? That question is exactly what has everyone talking right now. What do you think? Is Meghan's reputation facing long-term damage? Or could she still make a move that completely flips the story again? Drop your thoughts down in the comments because this topic is definitely going to spark serious debate. And if this breakdown made you see the situation from a new angle, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and share the video so more people can join the discussion. More deep dives and updates are coming soon, and you will not want to miss what happens next.